we're back. The Silver and Blue Huddle is back on the New Year's Eve edition, talking about these Dallas Cowboys going into 2025. We're here, win or lose, as we promised. It doesn't really matter if the Cowboys win or if they lose. We're going to show up every single week and give you everything you need to know about the Dallas Cowboys, about what they did and what they didn't do, and what hopefully they will do in the future over the next couple of weeks. But first off, we got my man Expert Corner is back. I'm back. Man, what a game. Coming off the Tampa Bay game, we thought going into Philadelphia, the Dallas Cowboys were going to show up and show out, or at least put up a fight against those nasty Eagles who we don't like to really lose to. This was the first time that the Philadelphia Eagles actually swept the Cowboys in a season series in a very long time. It's been a few years. Normally they either like split or the Dallas Cowboys just really just win both meetings, and they are the ones that are doing the sweeping. But the tables have turned, obviously. The Eagles beat up on a very injured-ridden Dallas Cowboy team, but they got the win. Shout out to them, I guess. They played pretty well. My first thoughts of the game is that it started out pretty well as far as like the first drive of the Dallas Cowboys, and then everything just fell off the wheels. Like, I don't know what happened after that. So we're going to let Expert explain what happened to the Dallas Cowboys after that first drive, because I thought it was going to be a very competitive game. I thought the Dallas Cowboys was going to like continue to fight like they have been fighting over the last couple of weeks. The wins against the Tampa Bay, some wins before that. I thought maybe the Dallas Cowboys were going to finish the season winning, but obviously they had different plans going into Philadelphia. So, Ed, what is your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles game?
Yeah, it just looked like they just gave up in this game. I mean, Cooper throws the pick six, which I don't know how he doesn't see C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Like, I mean, he's right there. You go back and look at the play. I watched the play. Jake Ferguson is wide freaking open coming across the middle of the field. He catches that ball. He's still running right now. But then Cooper responded, right? We get the pick. They get the touchdown. Cooper leads them on a drive right down the field. They put the ball back in the end zone. It's 7-7. Okay, let's calm down. It's the backup quarterback for the Eagles. It's not Jalen Hurts. We're not going to see, a quarterback that's going to be able to get out the pocket and hurt us with his legs. There's no tush push. He can't throw the ball like Jalen can throw the ball. So I was feeling good about the game when it was 7-7. And then they started to get Saquon Barkley going. He started to get some runs going. And it just looked like everything was open. Now, obviously, Deron Bland is out there playing by himself as the one true man-to-man corner. Jordan Lewis plays in the game. But the rest of the Cowboys secondary is lost. McQuamu, Butler, whoever they got out there. It's just whoever they got, they just look bad. A.J. Brown is really that guy. Devontae Smith is a great wide receiver.
Right.
They tight end catches a one-handed ball over your defender. But what I was surprised, Rich, was I didn't really see like anything exotic with the defense, right? I didn't see Zimmer putting pressure on the backup quarterback, even when the third string guy came in. If you ask diehard Eagle fans, they think Tanner McKee is actually better than Kenny Pickett. They like Tanner McKee. Got a little bit better arm. He's a big, strong quarterback. Right. But it just felt like at some point, these are backup guys for a reason, right? Kenny Pickett didn't work in Pittsburgh. They kicked him out. The Eagles pick him up. He's backing up Jalen Hurts. You got to put some pressure on these guys. You got to see if they're going to burst. At this point, Rich, what do you got to lose if you're Mike Zimmer?
Right.
I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at these guys. Because here's the thing. I saw a couple people on Twitter talking about, the Cowboys were tanking, so they tanked this game. They really want to win. Well, if that's true, then why did they beat Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay means nothing? You can't make the playoffs. So beating Tampa, so they weren't tanking in Tampa Bay, but they decided to tank in Philadelphia. I saw that, the Cowboys want, in that 12 to 15 pick range because that's where their guy's going to be, or that makes no sense whatsoever. No. If you have a top 10 pick in the NFL, that top 10 pick is worth something. You can trade your top 10 pick with the 12 to 15 guys and get some additional picks along with it. So the logic of now they're tanking means absolutely nothing. There was a lot of talk in media this week about before the Philadelphia game that these guys were fighting for Mike McCarthy and this is their coach. And, they want to show Jerry Jones that they like Mike McCarthy. That Cowboy team didn't show up on Sunday because they wasn't no fight. They wasn't no fight. I saw guys like just give up. And then can we finally put away the Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott argument? Can we please put that away? Yeah. Jonathan Mingo is wide open for a touchdown. I'm talking like why there were people in the stands closer to Jonathan Mingo than there were defenders. And Cooper Rush underthrew that ball by 12 yards. It was embarrassing. If he just throws the ball up in there, it's a touchdown. Yeah. So then I started to look at Jonathan Mingo and be like, well, maybe Jonathan Mingo's not as bad as we think he is. Maybe it's the quarterback that's bad.
And that's possible. When I saw that play, I text you as well because I was like, that was a touchdown, and that was going to beat coverage. Like, that was going to beat two-man coverage over the top if he just threw it in the pocket and Mingo would have like just kept running. When I first looked at it, just like you, I said, well, maybe Mingo should have came back for the ball, but no. Cooper Rush underthrew the ball. Defender made it was a catchable pass for a touchdown. Dak Prescott gets in the game, that probably is a touchdown easy because the man that was over the top was kind of late getting to the side as well. And just going back to Mike Zimmer, he made headlines this week in the news by saying that he wished that he would have done things a little bit differently with the defense over the course of the season, such as run the schemes that Mike Zimmer is known for, run the schemes that Mike Zimmer wanted to do, but he couldn't do because he felt that he couldn't really change the defensive culture in Dallas for whatever reason. I'm like, bro, you come in on a 1-year contract. You do what you want to do. Because what's the worst that can happen? They fire you? I mean, they're going to do that anyway. So why not come in and put your stamp on the defense and run the defense how you want to be ran? Like, who cares about what happened the year before?
These are multi-millionaire pro athletes. Like, they get paid to play the game of football. They can change up to your scheme. Yeah. You got that kind of talent on your field. If you felt... Here's where that irritates me is that's saying we could have been a better defense if we would have done my scheme. Well, you're the defensive coordinator. Right. Like, what do you mean? It's your scheme. It's your team. Why didn't you run the team? Yeah, you running the defense. Like, are you not there during the week installing your defense? And like, you got hired before training camp. You couldn't install your defense in training camp. Right. But yeah, it just looked like a team that didn't want to play. They didn't want to win. I'd never seen so much just laziness on defense with this Cowboy team.
Right.
The offensive line blocked well. Cooper Rush had time to throw the football. Rico Dowdle goes over another 100 yards. But the injuries start to stack up. You got no CeeDee Lamb. Jake Ferguson's only played so many games. You barely got one running back. Zeke don't want to be there. Obviously, they cut Zeke today to try and let him go play with somebody else. Zeke don't want to be there. And then they tried to do this. Well, we'll put Trey Lance in here at the end of the game and see what Trey can do. Trey Lance is horrible. He's just like Cooper Rush. That's all he is. He's just younger. But I
did try to tell you that back in preseason when he got the game and threw 5 interceptions in a preseason game.
You did.
Who does that? Trey Lance.
Listen, Rich, you and I have been through some pretty bad Cowboy seasons. Absolutely. I mean, 5-11s, 8-8s. We've been through some pretty down years. I would say, hands down, this is probably the most frustrating Cowboy season I've been through in a long, long time. Even this Jason Garrett years where he was 5-11 or 8-8 or whatever he was in those, in the middle of his tenure there. This by far, it was the most mentally anguished football season I've ever had. And it's been so bad that I'm excited to see what the playoffs are. I'm excited to watch other teams play football in the NFL. Obviously I'm rooting against the Philadelphia Eagles. I hope they don't win anything. Right. I hope the Commanders don't win anything. But yeah, I'm excited to actually watch some football and see guys compete in the playoffs because this Cowboy team didn't. I hope they come back with a vengeance next year.
Yeah, I can agree with you as well because normally, I mean, we've been so used to the Cowboys having a lot of good regular season success that when the playoffs come, we kind of know what to expect. But during the regular season, we know the Cowboys are going to be good. And for me, it started a little bit way too early where the Cowboys started to be so bad. Like after what, week 1, week 2, the Cowboys started to go downhill. After the Saints game, actually, which I think was like week 2, normally the Cowboys don't get bad until like after Thanksgiving or towards the end of the season where hey, they're fighting to be 8-8 or they fighting for the last playoff spot like that. But this particular season, it happened a little bit too early than what I liked. Okay. So being bad at week 3 and then having to sit through the whole season of your team being bad, it's hard to take. That's a hard pill to swallow at the end of the day, especially when you're used to your team being at least good in the regular season. At least you got bragging rights during the regular season. You know, once playoff time come up, you know what's going to happen. But during the regular season for 17 weeks, we can sit up here and talk great about the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, they'll lose a few in between, but being bad from week 2 to 17 is horrible as a fan. So, like you said on the podcast a few weeks ago, we don't understand how fans of other teams who lose on a regular basis do it and cheer for their team every single week, like the Titans, the Giants, and everybody else that are just terribly bad every single year. Like those fans really have nothing to look forward to. I mean, I don't even know why they even watch football. They should just choose another sport because their team is just going to be trash all year, every year. So. But you're right. I
Yeah,
agree with you. This is tough.
I got a buddy that's she's a Panther fan, and I asked her this year, you know, what's it like? Is this because the Cowboys were bad? I saw her in November at a company event, and I said, is this what it's like every single year as a Panther fan? And she goes, this is exactly what it's like. You know, you're not going to do anything. There's no hope on the horizon. You know, at least she said, at least Cowboys fans, you guys have always said, well, next year is our year. And, you know, even though it's not been true for a long time, there's still hope that you guys are going to be successful. She says, as a Panther fan, there's no hope. I've never heard a Panther fan say next year is our year. And so I can't deal with this like this. I cannot be part of a team if this is the organization we're going to have. So there's got to be a lot of changes.
Get on the show though, because during the summer I heard a lot from this guy. He's a Browns fan. We got to get our boy CLE because I know he was pretty hyped about the Browns these last couple of years. Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, I had to hear it all summer playing MLB with him, and then look at the Browns. Like,
yeah, and I think the same thing with the Cleveland Browns for the Dallas Cowboys is injuries impacted that team a lot.
Yep.
You know, and it doesn't take, you know, there are teams that can hide injuries better than others. Right. But there's no team in the NFL that's hiding a starting quarterback injury or a premier running back. You know, if Derrick Henry were to go down in week 2, the Ravens would be a lot worse. You know, the Eagles would be way worse if Saquon Barkley got hurt or Jalen Hurts got hurt early. And so you look at teams like the Browns, the Cowboys, who just basically had so many injuries impact him so early on. It just played a big role. And now, you know, now, Rich, we look at things, you know, we kind of have to flip our mindset and say, okay, 2024 is done. That season is over with. So now where do we go from here? You know, obviously, I would love to be sitting in the room with Jerry and Stephen Jones, and I'd love to be asking that question of, all right, guys, where do we go from here? Because where we are in 2024, we got to be in the exact opposite place in 2025 because we cannot be the same football team we were these past 17, 18 games and expect it to change in 2025. Obviously, you're going to get Dak Prescott back in week 1. You're going to have CeeDee Lamb back. You know, you're going to have the offensive line. You're going to have DeMarcus Lawrence. Hopefully they re-sign him. Micah will be back. You're going to have some pieces. The problem is you start looking at some of these other injuries. Trayvon Diggs might not be ready to start the season. Demarion Overshown probably not going to be ready at the start of the season. So there's going to be some key positions the Cowboys are going to have to make some decisions and bolster this lineup to try and fix some of these holes that they've got to try and improve this offense and this defense going in 25. And that's where, Rich, I really want to look at this free agency list and really say, how many of these guys on this free agency list do you think, okay, that's a guy we have to bring back in 2025?
Right.
So you got guys like Brandon Cooks, Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Lewis, Linval Joseph. Those are the guys that I look at. Odigizua, Rico Dowdle, even Brock Hoffman and Cavante Turpin. I think that group of guys, I really feel like you got to bring them back. Now, if you lose Wanye Thomas, you lose Marquise Bell, McQuamu, those are guys I feel are fringe guys. Would I love to have those guys back for special teams? Yeah, they've played well, but those are guys I don't mind losing. But of those other core guys, do you feel like those are guys we got to bring back here in 2025?
Do you feel that Brandon Cooks is someone that we need to bring back? Or do we just go younger at that position, maybe pick somebody up from the draft? I mean, his numbers have gone down. Obviously, the quarterback play has played a factor into that. Is the reason why he didn't play well this year. And plus, he got injured. Normally, Brandon Cooks is someone, when he first came to Dallas, he had consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, no matter who the quarterback was. But injury might be creeping up on him. I don't know. In your opinion, do you think we need to start over at that position, the third wide receiver, and go younger, maybe draft somebody and hope that they're good, or maybe trade for another veteran?
I don't know if I think Brandon Cooks needs to be brought back as number 2. Obviously, I think CeeDee Lamb is obviously your number 1 wide receiver. Maybe you go draft the number 2. Maybe Brandon Cooks can fall into that 3rd slot, 4th slot as a wide receiver. You're going to have to bring him back on a very team-friendly deal. He's one of those guys I wouldn't mind bringing him back if it's at the right price. And I think a lot of these guys on this list are under that boat, right? I'd love to have you back, but it's got to be under the right price because I don't want to hinder us attempting to go get us a free agent that can help us out if I'm spending all this money on DeMarcus Lawrence and I'm only going to get 4 games out of you, 6 games out of you, or whatever. Or is he going to be the DeMarcus Lawrence of 2-3 years ago? We'll see. But obviously, a lot of those guys on the list is going to come down to money at this point.
Yeah, and I think you said a key word. All those guys that you listed definitely got to come back on team friendly. I know we love Rico, but we can't break the bank for Rico. Rico has to be a very, 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 very team friendly type deal.
Yeah.
Because we need to see that he can keep up that type of production. Obviously, if he gets opportunities, he might be able to. But that's probably going to depend on the next coach, if that's Mike McCarthy or if it's going to be somebody else. But we got to probably get our coaching situation straight before we try to bring back Rico or some of those other guys, because we don't know if the new coach that we bring in is actually going to fit Rico's scheme or something like that. So all those players you listed got to be team-friendly deals, especially DeMarcus Lawrence, especially with his injury history. Zach Martin as well. I mean, I like Zach. I really do. So maybe I don't know what to do with Zach. We just got to have him back. But he been a good Cowboy his entire career.
Yeah.
When he's restructuring his money, I feel like every year we ask Zach Martin to restructure his deal, and he does it. So I guess if we had to pay one person off that list, we make sure we take care of him. But everybody else got to be team friendly. Everybody on that list has to be team friendly because we already capped enough with Dak and CD. Then we're gonna have to pay Michael Parsons, who claimed he doesn't need $40 million, but I believe that once he put pen to paper for less than $40 million. So
yeah. There's some agent somewhere that they heart fell when Michael Parsons said that, because his agent was like, "Wait a minute, that's my money too, right?" Listen, the Cowboys are going to pay Michael Parsons top dollar. I hope it's true. I hope he takes a team friendly deal. Hope he pulls the Dirk Nowitzki and takes less money to bring more talent around him so we can win a championship. That would be amazing, but you got to find a way to get Micah signed now, early. At this point, as soon as the league opens for business next year for 2025, you got to sign Micah Parsons. But then you've got to go be aggressive in free agency this year. There can't be any of this, hey, we're going all in, and then all you do is sign one person, and it's Eric Kendricks. And you only sign Eric Kendricks to a 1-year deal. So he's one of the free agents that you look at and say, he had a good year. He played good for us as a linebacker, but it's a position of need for this Dallas Cowboy team because DeMario Overshown is not going to be there probably for the first He may not. There are reports he may not play all of next season.
Right.
He may miss all of next year as well. So you have no linebackers. You are piecemealing this linebacker crew together. So they gotta figure this out. There's a lot of questions. I don't remember the last time, Rich, we were going into the offseason with so many question marks across both the offense and defense from a player personnel standpoint. Obviously, you feel good in certain positions, but outside of maybe quarterback and your defensive end and maybe your number one wide receiver, there are question marks all over this team. What Trayvon Diggs do we get? Deron Bland. At what are we going to do at safety, linebacker, defensive line? This offensive line, 13, 14 different offensive line, 5 guys starting in the season in a game where you've only played 16 games. You've had 13 different starting 5. That is not an easy thing to do in the NFL. And so running back, outside of, CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver, Jake Ferguson had his worst year as a Cowboy. He was non-existent. Now he had injuries, Dak not being there. There's some things that factor into that, but man, I am nervous about this offseason coming up.
So on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball, what positions, you only can pick one, what positions on either side of the ball is the most critical that you got to tackle first? Like on offense, what position do you got to tackle first? What's the biggest need on offense and what's the biggest need on defense?
For me, offensively, I feel good about the pieces they have on offensive line. So I feel like they can find a good starting 5. It's just got to be a healthy starting 5, and of course that's dependent on, do they bring Zach Martin back? For me, it's either you have to go find you that running back, which there are some guys in this draft or in free agency you can go get, or there is nothing better. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They have 2 number 1s. They have Devontae Smith and they got A.J. Brown. To me, that's 1A and 1B. Those 2 guys are number 1 wide receivers on pretty much every team in the NFL outside of the Minnesota Vikings, the Cincinnati Bengals. Those guys are number 1 wide receivers. Right. I'm taking a Devontae Smith. I'm taking A.J. Brown. Either one of those guys paired up with CeeDee Lamb, instantly they become the best wide receiver duo in the league. So you got to go find you that. And I hate to say that, Robin, to your Batman, that it's got to be that 1A, 1B guy. If CeeDee Lamb is 1A or he's 1B, you got to go find 1A. If that's T. Higgins, bring him. Right. There's got to be something where teams are afraid of doubling anybody, right? And hey, if I get man coverage, one of these 2 guys is open every single time. So I really feel like that would really help the Cowboys out if they go find a wide receiver to kind of help. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, when they were together, was one of the best wide receiver cores we ever had. If you go find another Amari Cooper to pair with CeeDee Lamb, this is a dangerous football team because Jake Ferguson is a good tight end, and we saw Schoonmaker make huge strides this year to be that other tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. So if they can find another weapon. Now, obviously, I don't think Brandon Cooks is that guy anymore. Brandon Cooks is a good serviceable wide receiver. To me, he's now the Cole Beasley of the Dallas Cowboys. The thing I used to love about Cole Beasley is that I could always count on Cole Beasley to run a route to get open. Tony Romo knew Cole Beasley was going to be open. I feel like that's Brandon Cooks now. Yeah. Defensively, that it might be the hardest question to answer, right? Because I think at all 3 levels, you need help. You do not have a safety, a shutdown safety that can roam the field on this football team. Right. I love Malik Hooker. I love Donovan Wilson. Neither one of those guys are that guy. They're not Tyrann Mathieu back there. Right. At linebacker, you outside now because Demario Overshown is hurt, you don't have that guy at linebacker. Right? True. You got to go find that line. And then at defensive line, outside of Micah Parsons, you really don't have that guy in the middle. Like Mozzie Smith got a little bit better, but Linval Joseph is not a young guy anymore. They have needs at every single level in this defense. This might be a very heavy defensive draft for the Dallas Cowboys. and they may sprinkle in an offensive player here and there, but I would not be surprised to see 5, 6, 7 guys on defense getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, depending on what picks that they have. Now, obviously, I think they're going to get a running back at some point. I also think, which is crazy to think, they're going to go quarterback at some point. They're going to try and find somebody that can come in and be that guy in case Dak gets hurt, or when Dak is done, this guy is being groomed to take over. So there are a lot of, again, this offseason it's kind of like, it's a tinderbox. Like one thing goes wrong and it could explode in our faces. And we could be looking at ourselves being a team that we're now in a true rebuild mode with a $240 million quarterback. And there's no hope for the next 2, 3, 4 years while he's under contract for us to be coming out of this tunnel in a good position. They really could really screw this up. And this started actually 2 years ago with what they've done in free agency and in the draft. So there's some big decisions they got to make. They have to hit on a lot of these draft picks and a lot of this free agency to be successful next year. And that is scary to think about as a Cowboy fan.
It is. Normally they do pretty good with the draft, but I think they have too many positions that they have to pick correctly that they probably going to screw it up. You mentioned a backup, bringing in someone that they can groom. I can't really recall the Dallas Cowboys organization as a whole having someone behind the starting quarterback that they have groomed over the years and just came in and took over. Obviously, Dak Prescott took over for Tony Romo, but that was probably the first time that I remember a backup quarterback coming in and really being decent enough to secure the starting job for future years, like Dak Prescott did. Do you recall them having a backup that they groomed that was actually good, kind of like a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love? Okay.
No, and so here's the thing: when they got Tony Romo, they weren't expecting Tony Romo to be Tony Romo, right? Tony Romo went undrafted. If you go back and watch the Tony Romo story, he almost went to the Denver Broncos for more money, and he ended up signing with the Dallas Cowboys with Bill Parcells, but. Right. Tony Romo it wasn't like Parcells was like, oh, we got to groom this number 9 kid. He can be the next guy. It just worked that way that Tony Romo was that diamond in the rough that nobody expected him to be that way. It's kind of like Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets drafted in the 6th round. Nobody expected Tom Brady to be Tom Brady. There were a lot of people that didn't expect Patrick Mahomes to be who he was. Now, the Chiefs were smart enough to see that at Texas Tech and kind of went up in the draft and got him. But the Cowboys have never really done that. They've never drafted and said, okay, this is the guy that we're going to get prepared and ready to go. But you mentioned the perfect scenario. Let's look at the Green Bay Packers. Right. The Green Bay Packers have one of the top 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time in Brett Favre in their organization, slinging the football around. They go and draft a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers basically sits behind Brett Favre for 2-3 years before Brett Favre decides to retire for the first time of 8 times that he retired. And then Aaron Rodgers takes over. Well, guess what? They go and get Jordan Love at the end of Aaron Rodgers' career and basically groom Jordan Love to be his backup. And now look what Jordan Love is doing. Right. So is that the process? No, most teams don't do that, right? When they need a quarterback, they go find the next quarterback. Right. And the problem with that is some of those can be hit and miss, right? Look at Trey Lance. The 49ers draft Trey Lance 3rd overall. They think he's the next great thing. And Trey Lance can't beat Cooper Rush out to be a starting quarterback in NFL now. Right. So, the 49ers were in scramble mode. They get Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy becomes this quarterback that takes them to places that Trey Lance never could. So every team has a different philosophy. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm looking for Dak Prescott's replacement now.
Right.
Because I don't want to go through this process like everybody else has been going through. Because most teams, look at the Patriots. There's not many quarterbacks that are going to be able to fill the shoes of Tom Brady. Now, there's nobody's going to probably ever win Super Bowls like he did, but they're in scramble mode now because they right now have the number 1 pick. They're probably thinking, do we take quarterback? Do we stick with Drake May? What do we do? They're kind of grabbing at straws, and they sitting in the catbird seat right now
Right.
with Cam Ward, with Shador Sanders, Quinn Ewers, if he decides to come out. There's a lot of quarterbacks there that they start thinking about, what do we do at the number one pick? Do they trade back? So I think the Cowboys got to be smart here. Put somebody in Dak Prescott's hip pocket and say, okay, Dak, we know at some point here in the next 4 or 5 years, you're done. We want you to get this guy ready for us. Help us get him ready. See if he can be that guy.
Right.
And who knows what you do, but
That would be
just
like a total culture shock for the Dallas Cowboys because it's not just quarterback that they really never have depth at. They don't have. You got okay, so you got Dak Prescott, and then you got Cooper Rush, and then you got Trey Lance. So you got two backups that are just totally just terrible. And then sometimes when CD goes down and Brandon Cooks go down, then you got a bunch of no names out there like Brooks or Jalen Tolbert out there who still can't even catch a ball. So they be lacking depth at all their positions. It kind of feel like they don't
yeah.
develop any of their players. And for me, it kind of sounds like the Dallas Cowboys are always in win-win-win mode every single year that they feel that they can just get any and everybody to come to the Dallas Cowboys and play when that's really not even a reality. And they really should take the time out to develop some of these people on their team, especially some of their backups. Because that's just unexcusable that you have a backup come in who don't even look like a true NFL quarterback until after 4 or 5 games. And even then, he still is terrible. Like, I understand he runs a scout team or whatever, but I don't understand how you got 2 to 3 backups and they all are terrible. Even at wide receiver, they are terrible. Secondary, you got to pull somebody from the practice squad who comes in and just loses a game for you. So I don't think they ever gonna take that approach of maybe like the Packers or some of these other teams that are great now, like the Lions or whatever, to where they develop these players as they go along. The Cowboys just be drafting. They just be signing people. They don't care about how they develop. That's why they always trying to get veterans to come in. And Dallas used to be the place to go for veterans, but nobody wants to come and play for Dallas now. So that's why they be struggling. That's why they don't have a backup. That's why they don't have
Yeah,
depth
and
in
I
outside
think
people.
you hit it perfectly. It's not about it's not trying to be the Lakers where they brought Karl Malone and Gary Payton in. That's not how you build a
Right.
dynasty. You build a dynasty by drafting those guys and developing those guys to be the next dynasty. You talk about the Lions. That's a homegrown football team right there that has drafted really, really well, developed those players, and then added pieces here and there to complement their team. The Cowboys are a long way away. And I hate to say it, man. It could be potentially a very, very rough 2025, 2026
Right.
for this Dallas Cowboy football team. Now, obviously, if you stay healthy, you got a better chance of being successful when you got a guy like Four throwing the football around and he's throwing it to 88. Obviously, those two guys are two of the top players at their positions. Micah Parsons is still that guy. Trayvon Diggs is that guy. But you, in the game of the NFL, 4 or 5 guys on your roster, while they could make a difference, they're not winning championships. You have to have guys at every single spot that are competent enough that if somebody does go down, if Trayvon goes down, you got a guy that can step in and be serviceable. And right now, when the Cowboys lose a spot, people are attacking these backups because they feel that guy's not ready to play. And listen, to me, that is on your head coach.
Right.
Right? He is responsible for the development of these football players. And if he's not going to take the time, the effort, knowing this his last year, he probably didn't care about developing that next level.
Right.
He was worried about those 22 guys that are going to start, those 30 guys that are a big piece of their offense and defense. And unfortunately, what happened was he started to lose pieces. And then he had to look at guys that he had not developed his whole time here. And now those guys aren't ready to go. They're not ready for the spotlight. Cooper Rush, the offense didn't change for Cooper Rush. The problem is that Cooper Rush can't run that offense. Right. You have to tailor something to him. And the Cowboys didn't do that. They still played the game like Four was in there at quarterback. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know one thing that has to happen on Monday morning after the Commander game. Matter of fact, on Sunday afternoon before the last game is played, What has to happen is I need to get an alert on my phone that says Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy have agreed to part ways.
Facts.
And Mike Zimmer will not be returning as well. The Dallas Cowboys will have an all-new coaching staff going into next season. I do not want to see this group back in the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, there are plenty others. Listen, Mike McCarthy, just listen to me. The Chicago Bears got a brand new quarterback. They got great weapons on offense. That defense is nasty. Go to the Chicago Bears and build that program, because I don't want to see you in Dallas again. You're welcome here. You are welcome to come back and visit. But your card at the Star has been revoked. You cannot come back to work.
Facts.
We'll send our stuff to you. We'll send all of the stuff in your office to you. Don't worry about that.
Right. And just one last thing about the Mike Zimmer thing. Like you mentioned, backup quarterbacks, as soon as they get in the game, you know that one play when Kenny Pickett actually threw the ball and fumbled it backwards and fell down? If I was a coach, defensive coach, immediately after I saw that, the only thing we would have been running is mid blitz, blitzing him, going after him every single down.
I don't understand not being aggressive. Listen, I was so pissed off in the Tampa Bay game that they won that football game. I was pissed. My poor wife, she knew I was pissed off. And I griped for days about winning against Tampa Bay. And she's like, baby, it's going to be okay. Maybe they know what they're doing. I was like, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They stupid.
Right.
But about Thursday, I finally was like, you know what? Let's just see. If this team fights the rest of the year, maybe this builds momentum going into 2025. They're going to fight to go into 2025.
Right.
Why did they not fight in the Philadelphia game? Mike Zimmer, he basically played preseason defense. If you look at this game, he is running shell defense. I don't care what quarterback is playing. Kenny Pickett, if it's Tanner McKee, if it's Deshaun Watson, it's the worst quarterback in the NFL. You run shell defense, just basic cover 3, cover 2. You're not disguising anything. Those quarterbacks are going to find they know what they're doing.
Right.
So that right there just cemented to me Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer need to go.
Right.
Because if I'm Mike McCarthy, I'm in the headphone saying, Zimmer, go get this quarterback. Like, man, zero blitz this guy, man to man. You got Deron Bland, you got whoever, McQuamu, Donovan, whoever you got, Jordan Lewis, put those guys in man-to-man versus their 2 best wide receivers and go get this quarterback.
Right.
Let's see what pressure does to Kenny Pickett. And we didn't put pressure on him. Nope. We said, well, I hope that our front four, unfortunately, your front four is not beating the Philadelphia front 5 consistently.
No.
Now, is Micah Parsons going to win a matchup here and there? Yes, he's going to win matchups. And there were some times where he got held and it just never got called. But go send 7, send 6, send 6 consistently, then send the 7th guy every once in a while, and make the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, make him make some tough decisions. Unfortunately, we made them look like all pro quarterbacks, and it's not like they threw for 400 or 500 yards. That's not what happened, but they were efficient in the pass game, and then Saquon Barkley ran the football. They played sound football. They didn't turn it over, and the Dallas Cowboys didn't put up any resistance. And to me, if you're fighting for your job as a head coach and a defensive coordinator, that was the worst showing possible. Like, that right there let me know you don't want to be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys in 2025. You've shown that. So let's just mutually part ways. I would be perfectly fine if they would have just said, you know what, Mike, let's just let Al Harris coach the team. Let's just go ahead and part ways now. We'll let you start the coaching carousel process with some of these other teams. Just go ahead and get your stuff and go. We're going to let Al Harris be the interim coach. Mike Zimmer, go ahead and go. We got this. And at this point, you have to shake this team up. And my concern is that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones know what is on the horizon for the Dallas Cowboy team, and it's mediocre football for the next couple of years.
Right.
and they hang on to Mike McCarthy because he's the evil and Dak Prescott likes him, and CeeDee Lamb likes him, and so you hang on to him just because you know it's going to be rough. And so he could be your scapegoat next year and the year after while your team's struggling. I'm going to be very upset if this coaching staff is back.
We're not going to put that in the universe. I hope none of that happens. I understand the position that they probably could take with that, but I do not want to see Mike McCarthy next year. I do not want to see Mike Zimmer. I don't want to see nobody on that coaching staff that is currently there in Dallas after next week. I'm with S. I better see an ESPN alert that say, hey, Mike McCarthy and coaching staff will not be retained. The Cowboy coaching search starts now. Put in your applications. That's what I want to see. Next Sunday. What is it? A 1:00 game by 4:00?
Yes.
I want to see that message. I want to see that alert by 4:00. Okay, that's what I want to see. But we got the Commanders coming up next week. I don't really have any expectations for that. I mean, hopefully they lose maybe to continue. Are we locked into our draft spot yet, or do we need to?
No, there's no lock because there's teams like the Giants that will now want to win football games in week 17. Like I just makes absolutely no sense. So there's no lock. They have a chance to get into the top 10. Just depends on who wins, who loses. But if the Cowboys come out, here's the thing: Cowboys come out and they play with effort against the Commanders. I don't know. I don't know what this team is, what they're doing. If it's me, Trey Lance is playing this entire game. He's a free agent. You've seen Cooper Rush enough. I'm just playing Trey Lance. If Trey Lance goes out there and throws 4 picks and 2 of them go back for touchdowns, who cares? Yeah. Who cares? Nobody cares that the Dallas Cowboys are losing the last game of the season. They're done for. And now we can listen. Sports shows are already talking about what the Cowboys need to do in free agency and in the draft. Let's just continue that process. Right. Because if they win on Sunday, then the talk will be, is Mike McCarthy coming back? And the conversation should not be that. It should be, where do the Cowboys need to go to improve this football team? So obviously I don't think they're going to play Trey Lance, but I wish they would.
I don't want to see Trey. I don't want to see Cooper. I just want to see whoever's on the practice squad playing quarterback. That's the person they need to elevate and start him on Sunday, because I'm pretty sure he would go out there and play like the trash that he is, and he'll ensure that the Cowboys lose that game. So I want to see all the practice squad people get elevated and promoted to the starters and take the field on Sunday against the Commanders. That's what I want to see, because we need to secure these draft picks. Like you said, you got the Giants out here winning. You got the Raiders out here winning. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing? Obviously, everyone has they say we all professionals and we don't believe in tanking or whatever. I get it. I do. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. And that's to lose the game. Like, I don't know what else to say about that, but hopefully the Commanders are what, 11-5? Ugh.
Yeah.
Disgusting. So who has the first pick right now, Ashley?
So right now the Patriots would have the number 1 pick.
Patriots, okay. It's a 14 tie for first? Cleveland, Tennessee, New England, and the Giants?
Yeah, so I think the Patriots would have the first pick.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you look at these teams, the Patriots, the Titans, the Giants, the Browns, which one of those teams need a quarterback? So that's the great thing, is that I really feel where the Cowboys are at 12, there's going to be some great players available. Is Genty available from Boise State? There's some teams in there that may go Genty. You never know. He's been linked to the Raiders, the Jaguars. I mean, there's a lot of teams. The Bears need a running back. So it'll be interesting to see what the Cowboys do with that 12th pick. Do they trade back? Do they trade up? At this point,
what piece could we offer to trade up? Because I think that's what the Cowboys need to do, because every other team hates on the Dallas Cowboys and takes our picks. So we can trade up. I would want to trade up.
Yeah, but to me, it's got to be very smart about what are you trading up for.
Okay.
Listen, I love Genty. I think he's a great running back. Does that correlate to the NFL? I don't know. There are a lot of good running backs in the draft. a lot of good running backs in the draft that you don't have to go chase one. For me, you don't have to chase one in the draft.
Which round would you
Again,
draft a running back?
to me, I think you can find you a good, solid running back in the third, fourth round.
Okay.
Look at what the Jets did. The Jets had, a great running back. I mean, Brees is a great running back. They draft Braylon Allen from Wisconsin later in the draft, and he's going to be a monster for them when Brees is done. Or when they get rid of Brees, that's the thing. You can find good running backs later in the draft. It's very rare. Is there a Saquon Barkley? Is there a Derrick Henry? Those guys are just rare, right? The Cowboys obviously drafted Zeke very, very early in the beginning of his career. He was a monster for the Dallas Cowboys. So typically now you're going to find that running back in round 3, round 4, round 5. So for me, that first pick, it's got to be a big, huge defensive lineman. It's got to be a linebacker. It's got to be a crazy athletic wide receiver. Or it's got to be, a corner, lockdown corner, or a safety that can control the back end of the field. So the problem is they got so many holes to fill. It'd be hard to mess number 12 up.
Okay. Well, I definitely believe in your confidence in the Dallas Cowboys draft status or draft position. So hopefully we make the right choice. We pick the right guy that can actually help our team win right now. If not, I mean, they might well go and trade for Brees Hall because the Jets ain't going to be good next year. Now we're Aaron Rodgers. And then they're going to come in with a new coach as well. So go trade for Brees Hall. Go get him or something like that. Like, teams out here giving up star players for 3rd and 4th rounds. And we ended up with Mingo. So I don't know. But give me a score prediction for the Commanders and Cowboys. Then we
Commanders 56, Cowboys 7. I hope this game is not even close. Ooh. Like, can this game just be over early? Please, just be over early. Listen, I'll be at church on Sunday. I am in no rush to get home to watch this football game. I'll get home when I get home.
50 burger though? That is nasty.
I don't expect the Cowboys to put up any kind of fight. They've already shut down CeeDee Lamb for the year. Trayvon's done for the year. I would not be surprised if we don't see some other players just not available to play in this last game just to protect health. There is no reason to risk Micah Parsons getting a torn ACL, a torn MCL in the last game of the year. There is no reason Jake Ferguson should be on this football field. Deron Bland should be on this football field. Odigizua. There is no reason. If you have a guy that's going to play for you next year, he should not be in this football game playing against the Washington Commanders. Because here's the worst thing. Micah Parsons plays in a game that is meaningless. He tears his MCL. He's done for an entire year, and you don't have Micah Parsons. You don't have Demarion Overshown. These are the decisions that I should not be, as a fan, be making these decisions faster than what the Dallas Cowboys are inside of that building. Somebody inside that building has to be smart enough and say, listen, anybody that's playing for us next year that we think is a piece to help us next year try and go win a championship, you are not playing this week. We have enough practice squad players. We got enough backups. All of you guys are playing. If the 4th string defensive end tears his MCL on Sunday, nobody's going to bat an eye. But if Micah Parsons does, and he's done for a year, he tears his Achilles, these are the decisions that affect not just the next year, but the next 2-3 years for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's the part that's frustrating to me, is that I got a feeling 11 lines up and plays this football game against the Washington Commanders.
I hope not, because there's also reports out there that Saquon Barkley probably might not play, even though he has something on the line to break the record.
Why would he, though? See, then again, at the end of the day, it would be great to break Eric Dickerson's record. It would be great. But at the end of the day, you played an extra game than Eric Dickerson played. So you didn't really break his record. It took you extra game to break the record. So to me, the record is not going to be broken. Secondly, isn't the whole point of this is to win the Super Bowl? That's the whole point of playing in the NFL. It's not about, can I break Eric Dickerson's record? Because here's the thing. I bet if you ask Saquon, This happened in the Giants game. In the Giants game, he was like 13 yards away from breaking his all-time single game record. Nick Sirianni goes to Saquon Barkley and says, hey, I'm going to ask you, you only need 13 yards. Do you want me to put you back in? Saquon Barkley says, no, let the young guys eat. I'm good. So I think Saquon could care less about the record. I think Saquon is more about how do we win football games to get to a championship. Right. That's the most important thing. So for the Cowboys, they're on the opposite end of this. How do we protect ourselves for next year, right? If Cooper Rush gets hurt, great. We can find another backup quarterback. I'm fine with that. Micah Parsons get hurt, there's no other Micah Parsons out there to replace Micah Parsons. I'm sorry, there's just not. He should not play in this football game.
He should not.
Deron Bland should not play in this football game. Jordan Lewis shouldn't play in this football game. No, Diggy Zua. None of these guys that I think are going to come back next year and play on this football team. Cooper Beebe should not be out there. Tyler Guyton should not be. This should look like the practice squad Dallas Cowboys on Sunday versus the Commanders.
Right. Is it in Dallas or in Washington?
I believe it's in Dallas.
Okay, so yeah, they should just stay home.
It is in Dallas.
Stay home or go watch it up in Jerry's suite.
Yeah, just get them a suite. Let them go up there, hang out. Listen, the locker room it's beautiful. They just hang out in the locker room. They got TVs in there.
I agree. So I mean, 50 burger is a little bit of a stream, but however, if it gets Mike McCarthy gone by 4 p.m., I'm all for the 50 burger and the Dallas Cowboys totally just losing this game and just like I said, notification. Mike McCarthy, Mike Zimmer decided to part ways. Dallas Cowboys coaching search starts now. I'd be totally okay with that. So if they got to put 50 on them for Jerry Jones to wake up and be like, hey, we got to change the voice in the locker room. And I don't understand how he really got to that point already. He really should already have been there a few weeks ago after seeing what Mike McCarthy does. But he got to go. So hopefully we see that. But Silver and Blue Huddle, another episode down. I guess we'll come back next week after the Commanders game and after the great news of Mike McCarthy being fired. We're not being fired, but not being re-signed. So we'll come back for that, and we'll talk about whatever's happening with the Dallas Cowboys after that. But hopefully, we'll have some good news to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm Richblkman, Expert Corner. Make sure you follow the podcast on YouTube. Listen to the podcast on all your streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify. It'll be posted immediately today. And from me and myself and Expert, we wish you guys a happy new year as well going into 2025. Hopefully you had a great holidays as well. And we thank you guys for all the support, all the viewership, all the comments, all the reaction to the YouTube. We're going to get better in 2025. It's going to be a way bigger year for Silver and Blue, and we're going to bring you a lot more content. So from both of us and Mike as well, so amazing. We thank you guys for all the support that you guys are giving us for 2024. Yep. So anything else you want to add?
No, man, just appreciate all the fans that have interacted with this. We love doing this. I think Rich talked about that a couple weeks ago, man. This is something we look forward to every single week, regardless what the Cowboys do, up, down. This is something we enjoy getting together. The three of us, when we do get together, we talk about it quite a bit. And so looking forward to 2025, regardless what the Cowboys do. We got big things for the Silver and Blue Huddle, so just appreciate it. Y'all have a great, happy new year. Y'all be safe, and we'll see you after Commanders game.
Silver and Blue out. Peace out.